Hi everybody, welcome to another episode of Unscripted. We are on the road once again. We're loving these road ventures. We are with Chad Greenway, former Viking, and I'm just going to call you Chad Entrepreneur now, because you have your hands in so many different awesome pies.
Yes.
Building an app. You also have your spirits now. It's not just vodka.
Yep.
Gray Duck spirits and so many other things. A farm. How are you?
Busy. Busy would be the best way to describe our family, I think, right now. Just obviously with 4 kids and activities. Everybody's playing at least 2 sports, always at one time. So you have 8 different activities. We do have a driver, which is nice.
Oh, you do?
You know, Madden can drive,
Oh, no,
obviously.
okay.
Yeah, Madden can drive within that family. We're not paying for a driver. But that helps a lot. And then obviously the businesses and the farm is fun. Fun, but busy. And so I'm doing great, and the family's doing well, and just trying to raise these kids.
I remember way back when you were with the Vikings and you wanted to build this home, and your daughters were little, and you were talking about growing strong, independent, smart women. Yeah. And for me to see this come to fruition, and just to see on all 4 of them, just how their own personalities are coming through and just what they're contributing. How proud are you?
Yeah, well, they're mouthy, that's for sure. That's the start.
Well,
so
chip
proud.
Off the old block.
Yeah, exactly. You kind of see the vision for your kids when they're young, and they're still young. I have the second grader, obviously, and you kind of see how you want your family to be and how you want them to think. And in some ways, right, you see successful women that are out in the marketplace, that are out doing their own thing and being independent and having their own jobs and creating their own opportunities. You want to be able to allow them to be able to think that way. And Jenny, my wife, their mom, obviously should take a ton of credit for it, because I think them seeing her mindset and how she operates and how she manages the house, or how she approaches work, or how she approaches coaching, whatever she's doing, her mindset resonates with them, and they see it, and they see how she operates. And I think they embody her in a lot of ways. So as much credit as I always get, it's really more Jenny. And so when they see a strong woman influence in their lives as their mom every day, it becomes pretty easy to become a chip off the old block. And I think that's what they've all become, which we're so proud of. And they love sports, they're very active, they're great at school, and they have lots of friends, so they seem like they're doing great.
You know what I love about Jenny too is such a force and a powerhouse that she probably has kept you on task in retirement, even though I don't think you needed any help, but you're that dynamic duo that way.
Yeah, I think when we met each other when we were 18, and obviously first year of college, and we were obviously in college and went through all these changes and all these newfound independence. I think when you build a relationship on that solid ground and foundation and footing, it allows for just open conversation about holding each other accountable, I think, in both ways, and truly building a 50-50 relationship where, like, she keeps me in check and I keep her in check, and I think it makes it better for the girls being raised in this house, because we do have that back and forth, and hopefully that means they're going to have good, solid, healthy relationships in the future as well. You want to see and promote that. I think that's really important for young girls to see. So she doesn't get nearly enough credit for the success that our kids are having, the success that I personally had on the field. I always think that any success that I have, whether it's business success or my children's success or my personal success, was always because of having strong women leaders in my life, from my mom, my sisters, my grandmothers, to now my wife, and then being around my girls. Obviously, they hold a high standard, and they're achievers, and it's fun to be around them.
I know sometimes when you hit retirement and you start going off in a different phase of your life, fans still remember you as the football player.
Right.
Do you allow yourself to go back? I mean, 2 Pro Bowls, all pro, going to the NFC championship game, that whole thing, and now you're seeing some of your former teammates going to the Hall of Fame. Do you sit sometimes and let yourself, I know you probably don't sit a lot and reflect, do you let yourself think back to those days?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's brought up a lot, just
conversations.
People in conversations, or people saying, I remember that game, I remember this game, and you kind of reflect it that way, but I'm not a big guy who sits around and reflects back. I think what I think about the most is just the people that were brought into my life that allowed me to think that this was a possibility. And when you come from small town South Dakota, graduated with 26 kids in my class, played 9-man football, you look at the hill that you had to climb to maybe even get the opportunity. And it's because I had people in my life that allowed me to think that way, that don't just dream in this way, dream bigger. And that was really important. And my parents were always so supportive. You know, they weren't these people on the sidelines saying, you got to train hard, you got to lift hard, you got to get to the gym, you got to do this. It was just like, go play as hard as you can, have as much fun as possible, let the chips fall where they may, and play 4 sports and do all the stuff. And I was fortunate enough to be talented enough to get one offer by the right guy, Kirk Ferentz in Iowa City, who took all these low-level, small-time kids, small-town recruits, and developed us all into NFL players. I'm not just one of them. There's a bunch of us that have gone on to play in the NFL, and it's because he's really a leader of men, and that's what he produces. So I think, again, he's brought into my life, along with the assistant coaches and my strength coach there, to then get pushed up to here and get drafted by Mike Tomlin and his mindset and mentality and his approach for that first year. And then Leslie Frazier comes into my life, and then obviously Brad Childress and Fred Puggett, who is so impactful in my life. So I have all these great coaches and people around me all the way through, along with personally having great parents and great sisters and a great wife and support, but yet firm and being held accountable. And so I do reflect, but I also think back to how many people helped me get here. And then you got to put the work in, and you got to be good enough to stay. So playing 11 years and finishing the Vikings is probably the most proud thing I've really accomplished in my career.
When in college did you think, not your coach, I could go pro?
It was after my junior season. Okay. And it was only because you kind of, at least in our program in Iowa City then, the world was smaller. Social media wasn't around. You didn't think on those terms, those grand terms. You kind of just, what was the next day? Okay, I have a workout at this time, I have school, then I have practice. And you just kind of chipped away day after day after day, and pretty soon you kind of lift your head up after your junior year. I had a pretty good year. I was an All-American, and I started getting calls from agents asking if I was going to leave early. And I was like, man, I never even thought about that. So I started to think, like, man, they must think I'm good enough. And then I started asking questions in our building. They're like, well, here's how they see you. I decided to stay for my senior year because I had a bunch of injuries after my junior year and I couldn't come out. So I stayed my senior year and wanted to finish what I started and graduate and finish that out. And you kind of look up and like, man, I'm going to be a pro. Whether I was going to get drafted in the first round like I was, or I was going to be undrafted, I was going to get an opportunity. And even for that to be considered was crazy. And then you have your draft day back on the farm with all your family, friends, kids you grew up with, kids I played high school football with, college friends, and then you get that dream, come true. Was amazing. There's a picture that I talk about all the time when I'm doing my speaking stuff for different businesses. I have this picture of myself receiving an award right after a high school football game. And this was the game that a former Iowa player saw me play, reached out to Coach Ferentz and said, have you ever heard of this kid? And they hadn't at Iowa. So he was the reason I actually got recruited, was John LaFleur, Jefferson, South Dakota. He's a high school coach at Sioux City Heelan now, I know that. And I got found because of him. But in the background are all my teammates from high school. And it just goes to show you that, like, you can be talented as an individual, but if you don't have a team to get you into that moment, my career doesn't happen. And because we had great high school teammates and friends and kids I played with from kindergarten all the way up through high school, we won a state championship, and that game is why I got found, because of those great teammates that never played another snap of football in their life. Wow. And you think about those little things, those opportunities, it's just like, man, if we had gotten beat out the game before and never got to play in that game, who knows how my career would have ended up, differently. And those little things are crazy to think about. But those pictures they remind you of those guys that are my best friends growing up that gave me that chance, and crying in that locker room after my last high school game, knowing that was the last time you played together. Those are what makes sports so impactful. And the best lessons can be learned through sports, like that's for sure. And I live that every day now. And
one person that can speak up for you.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, 100%.
It just takes one person to have you heard of this kid?
Yeah, and I didn't even know the guy.
Oh my goodness.
I never met him before. I met him during my career at Iowa. Wow. And he said, hey, and he was just, I was a small town kid, wasn't being recruited by anybody. USD and SDSU and the NDSUs that were all D2 at the time. Yeah. Now they've got crazy good programs, but then it was just, I was going to go play quarterback at one of those schools because I was a quarterback. And you go to Iowa and they figure out that you can play defense, then you gain 40 pounds and play linebacker and get faster, and everything worked out. So it was pretty lucky.
You talk about high school crying in that locker room. Out of all the locker rooms I've covered, the toughest locker room I've ever been in is the one down in New Orleans when
Yeah.
you guys lost in 2009, 2010. I remember it was like 10 minutes, 15 minutes before we can usually go in. It was like 45.
Yeah.
And we all understood why. But when I walked in, you were all still in your uniforms. You were all still sitting at your lockers, and you were all like heave crying still. Where I felt like, should we back right back out? But I felt it. You know, like that you were, every single one of you was invested. Because I've been in locker rooms, and you have too, where you lose a game and people are laughing, or you lose a game and they're like hitting things. And but this was different. How was that for you?
I think you know, as a journalist, and you're in there, you're covering us all year. You know, you see us, and we get to know you really well, and you get to know our personalities, and then you see us go through the ups and downs and the grind of a season and the practices, and to have it all end in that way. You know, that was a really mature team. It was an older team in 09. We had a lot of veterans that I think knew that was their last chance to get to or win the Super Bowl. And I was, you know, middle of my career, 4th or 5th year, and I didn't have that perspective yet because I was still kind of in the middle of my career, beginning of my career.
Right.
So it was emotional because you're so close and you knew you were the best team. Like, we were the best team in football. There's no doubt about it. I think every Viking fan would agree. But that just doesn't matter because you have to win the game.
Right.
And to be that close at the moment seemed like such a negative and such a hard thing to swallow. You know, we always talk about the '98 Vikings and all the teams in the '70s that were so good they couldn't get it done. And then that team was the next. You know, after the '98, it was the most recent team that kind of had the same type of heartbreak, and you kind of had that feeling of just like, how do you get over the hump? Because we were so good, made all the right plays, and had 5 turnovers, and still took the game to overtime, and all the stuff that happened. I look back at it now as a positive because I think about where my journey began. And I think about the fact that I got to an NFC Championship game. Like, having some perspective on, like, as hard as that was from a fan or from a player standpoint, all the work you put in, or how long you've been a fan of the Vikings, you realize that it's a blessing to be there, and an opportunity was crazy. And to think that I was in that moment, had the chance, was wild. But that was the hardest locker room I've ever been in because you did have so much emotion from that loss, knowing it was right there. And then I never got back to that championship game again. You just, how fleeting it is for most players, not everybody, right? If you're on the Chiefs the last 4 or 5 years, you've had a good run. But not, you know, it's very, very rare to be in that position if you look back at people's careers. And then the locker room in 2015 after Blair misses the kick was a more immature team from just an age standpoint. Like, we were younger. And that was more of this throw our helmet, pout, a little bit more of like a look at me. It wasn't as emotional as like, this may be my last chance, and this really, really guts us. And it was a more of a visceral reaction to Blair's miss. And in that moment, it's like, you have to be a supportive friend and teammate because nobody wanted to make that kick more than Blair. And again, it wasn't the NFC Championship game. We were building to get to that point. But either way, those are hard losses to take after a grind.
Those are historical losses when it comes to Vikings fans and war and everything.
And I think, so that game is a game that I won't forget either because I was going to retire after that game, after my 10th year. And I was like, I can't end this way. I want to go at least take another run at it. And the cold weather, -3 degrees, whatever. It was just a kind of it was a game that should have ended differently. If you look back at it, everything was pointing to us going to win that game. We just couldn't get it done. So those are the two things that season enders were really hard.
Yeah, because you overcame that season too, having to play in a different stadium, the college stadium, outdoor, the whole thing. So I know you say that it was kind of an immature team, but the fact that you guys could all rally around Blair, you know, like that takes some maturity to do that in that moment.
We all didn't. But the majority of us did. And there were some that were pointing, you know, the finger pointers. But to be throughout the whole season, and you see the off-season work and time put in from everybody, including Blair and the whole operation, the kicking operation, you go like, how can that dude's put just as much work in as I have. And
he didn't want to miss the kick.
I know I've played imperfectly. So, like, the reality is it's not just on that play, that one moment. And then you think back what happened in the next training camp is Teddy, you know, gets his knee, and then the whole course of the organization changes over the next 4 or 5 years because Teddy, you know, was playing so well and then gets hurt, and then it doesn't reach the level he ever did again.
And that afternoon was one of the most unique afternoons. I've never been on multiple playing fields, because when you guys were still in Eden Prairie, where you all knew instantly You know, it's like the hush.
Yeah.
Some in the further fields took a, but you were all down on one knee. Like you knew, we didn't know what exactly it was, but you knew. And some people even got sick in that moment.
Yeah. It was. I was on the field. I was a defensive. It was a defensive snap against 1v1s, and I dropped back into my coverage. It was a zone coverage. I'll never forget it. I dropped back to my zone. I just get my head snapped, turned back around, and I looked back, and everybody's running away from Teddy. That's all I saw. I didn't see the actual play happen, and then then you see people's visceral reactions, and it was just like, oh, it's because Teddy is so beloved, still is so beloved, such a great human being, and that's hard. It's just a hard moment that you realize that it's a course changer for people's careers and lives, and that's now part of Teddy's story.
For you personally, highlight, was it the pick six at it was called TCF back then?
Yeah.
Or is there another one? What stands out for you for fun? Like the young Chad inside this pro body, like, yes, I'll remember that forever.
Yeah, I mean, I think coming back off my ACL, my first start against Joey Harrington and the Falcons in the Metrodome in 2007 was amazing. The special part about the pick six, the long 91-yard interception return, was that was the only game that my grandfather ever attended live in person. And I had just lost my dad and my grandmother, his wife, that previous year. It was just like one of those things you just like, this was just meant to be, it meant to happen. And just weird, you play a whole game and we're winning the game, we're ahead, and the ball gets tipped, and you have this whole line of people ushering me to the end zone. And I got to give my game ball to my grandfather, and like just such a special moment. Things you can't make up in sport. You're just like, this is something. There's a higher power that's sort of making this happen. It's incredible. That was probably the most special memory from a play and a game because of that. Having him be there was just so personal. And I think my last game, be able to say thank you to the fans and wave a hand and be at US Bank and get to play in the new stadium, and then just to be able to see it through, and was really important. I think it tried to embody what I was as a player, try to be who I am from our small town, try to be who I am as an Iowa Hawkeye, to now as a dad and husband, to be like, that's who I am. I want to see things through. I want to be loyal. I want to finish what I start. I want to finish my career where I started, and I was able to do that. And I think that probably the thing that means the most to my career is being able to finish what I started in Minnesota. So it's special.
Do you feel like your dad was looking down on you?
Yeah, I mean, I think you always, when you lose somebody so special like that in the middle of my career, and can't say enough about the Vikings during that whole time, because the organization supported me in so many different ways. I'm missing practices. I'm in Rochester trying to be around my father and my parents and what they were going through, and then trying to balance the family, and the whole dynamic was wild, and Coach Frazier and the whole organization was so special to see me through. And then for the Iowa Hawkeye complete staff and the Viking complete staff to be at my dad's wake and funeral, just so important that it was bigger than the sport. It was about the relationship and the people. And so, I mean, you always think that your dad is, that's how I parent now, is trying to still make him proud, right? He's such a great dad. I want to, embody what he was to me.
So now that you're retired, you have brought that work ethic, like you said, everyone behind you is kind of going forward with you into this new realm where I started this by calling entrepreneur. You are, right? Yeah. You have your sports app, the alcohol. You also have the foundation, Lead the Way Foundation. When you think back on all of these things, when you were Chad in high school, did you ever think that not only you're not working one job when you retire, you're working like 4 or 5?
I should have taken some more business classes in college. I should have listened maybe a little better. It's been really fun. I mean, our Great Experience brand is 6.5 years old now, which is incredible, almost 7 years old. And started that because, you got the wrong friends that introduced you to the wrong people, and before you know it, you have a vodka brand, and now we have a whole spirits company, and we have a bottling company and a canning company, and it's a lot of fun. It's been a lot of learning. But I think the thing I learned the most is that relationships still are everything. I think that's in everything you do, whether it's sport, business, relationships, being authentic, shaking somebody's hand, looking them in the eye, and doing what you say you're going to do. Having integrity is really important in business. And that industry for sure. I have great partners that work their tails off, that kind of run the day to day, and I pop in and help when I can, and know what I'm good at and what I'm not good at. Our MN Scorefeed app, we're now in 8 states. That's
and now
been
on my phone.
Yeah,
Okay.
yes. If you have a high school sports athlete, you have to have the MN Scorefeed app. It's incredible. We're going to add a spring sport next year. We don't have a spring sport, but we have obviously our fall and our winter sports covered, and our user base is going crazy. Our fans support. I was the reason it came to Minnesota. It started in South Dakota with some friends that I got to know, and I reached out via an email and said, "Hey, this app is awesome." Because I was following my nieces and nephews on it. You can live stream any game on it, and I was able to watch my nieces and nephews play back home from the comfort of my couch, even though my kids had a game, and I can be in a gym doing it and watching it. And I was like, we have to have this in Minnesota. That was right when Madden started playing high school sports, and I was like, what's it going to cost to bring that over here? And we did all the programming and got it going, and then Minnesota fans have just gobbled it up like crazy. It's been awesome, and now we've expanded to a bunch of other states, and people love their high school sports, and they're very tribal about it in a good way, which is very fun. So it's been fun to be able to bring that product to Minnesota, and the hits we have on users and how many times you're clicking our live stream links and how many times you're looking at updated standings, rankings. During state tournament time, everything's right there in your section. If you're looking at your section, you're looking at your state bracket, it's pretty fun to be a part of, and again, to just make it more efficient for high school sports and athletics. So I meant Scorefeed, it's awesome, and I always get complimented mostly by folks who do sports radio or sports TV and say, this makes things so much easier because it's right in the palm of my hand. I can see updated scores. I can actually talk about it.
It's hard to find if it's not on that.
And it's updated by fans. So it's live updated in game by fans. So you have mom in Hibbing who's updating this basketball score every 2 points or 1 point or 3 points live, and then when the game goes final. And we check that. And we have a checks and balances in place to make sure it's accurate. But it's been a lot of fun, and I love it because I love high school sports. And of course, I have 2 kids in it right now, which helps.
And you get to watch when you're at one, and you get to watch another one, because you can't split yourself in half sometimes,
100%.
right?
Yes,
right?
We are always doing that. Yeah.
And also with the Lead the Way Foundation, I personally love the Tend Her Heart luncheons that you give back to the moms that really deal with a lot of children with physical, just a lot of disabilities, and just the day for them, but also the camps that you have for kids.
Yep.
You have a golf tournament coming up. And when is that? What are the details
June 16th.
on that?
June 16th. So it's at Edina Country Club this year because our normal country club is shut down for repairs. So it's at Edina, June 16th. And that's one of our 2 major fundraisers. We have our Celebrity Waiter Night that you've supported many years.
Yeah, I love that one. I can pour wine with the best of them.
Yes. You supported, usually in your own glass. But you support us in so many ways, and we appreciate that. Our Tender Heart Luncheon is certainly a special one. We hosted that at Mystic Lake this year. And I think we had 350 moms this year, which was the biggest one we've ever had. And these moms are dealing with sometimes lost children, mourning lost children. Sometimes they're new to having a child that just found out they have a disease, or some of these moms have been dealing with this for years and decades. And you get to hear their story. They get to tell their story to each other. It's a really great sorority of women that do things that we can't imagine on a daily basis. And so we've been able to support so many different families and kids and hospitals across the upper Midwest, from Iowa City to Fargo, Sioux Falls, and all, of course, the metro. And we even touched Wisconsin, getting to Hudson over there. We help the Packer fans out too. But it's been fun, and it was something with the Lead the Way Foundation. I didn't realize, again, back to relationships. When I retired in 2017, we're talking to our executive director of the foundation, what are we going to do? What's the next steps? Do we try to phase it out? Do we just focus on one small thing? And then it got bigger. And you realize that people that were giving weren't giving because I played. They were giving because they believe in what we're doing and the mission, and we do what we say we're going to do. And I think that's really important and valuable, especially when people are writing checks or giving personal dollars. They want to know they're making an impact and being a part of it. So our board is tremendous, and it's gotten stronger and bigger since I retired, which I did not expect. And now we get our kids more involved, which is really fun, because now they get to see that side of things, of what it was like. And what I think, maybe there's not the right word, but an obligation to use your platform for good. And the Vikings did a tremendous job of that when I played, of supporting, and they still support. But really, they gave me a great platform of being a Viking, and had access to all of our fans and resources, and it'd be pretty ignorant to not use that.
But I also love it, though. It's wide open, because you want to lead the way for these young boys and girls that grow into men and women, and then you support them when things go perhaps wrong or even well. So it's aptly named Lead the Way.
Yes.
Because it's also you're leading by example, Chad.
I think, that's what, our Reach camp out in Hutchinson, which comes up at the end of July. this will be our 18th year of that.
Wow.
And and the REACH program, which of course is supported by Hutchinson High School and a lot of other schools now in Minnesota and down in Texas, and we're across the country now. But what Chad Harlander's done with that program is incredible. And you're literally taking kids that sometimes need a hug, need help with grades, need help getting to school, need help getting 3 square meals. Like, you're dealing with all sorts of different kids from walks of life that are struggling in some capacity, and trying to lift them up and give them a voice. And that REACH program is now spread across Minnesota and being supported by schools and get school credit for it. So it's a class, and you get credit for that, and you get to come in there and work on whatever you need to work on. Sometimes it's yourself, sometimes it's your grades. And now these kids are graduating and going on to secondary education and getting technical school degrees, getting into trades, sometimes going to college. And then we get letters, here's how you impacted my life. And don't know these kids, right? Or maybe we met them in Hutchinson at the camp. But our camp usually has between 400 and 500 people, and it's a character building camp. It's a football camp, but really we're teaching life lessons about how to put your arm around somebody and help them, and be that person who's big enough to not be cool, but to do the right thing. And it's hard to teach a 10 to 15-year-old that, because they want to be cool. So we're trying to teach those things, in one kid at a time.
Well, I've been the recipient of some of their handwritten thank yous.
Yeah.
Which you're like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, they're tremendous. Yeah.
This is amazing. They are, and that you could just tell the love that was put into it. Their crayons.
Yes, it's unbelievable. And I think that's when it really hit Jenny and I, when we got our first batch of letters. And again, like what Harley does out there in Hutch, he puts, literally, I don't want to take any credit, because I show up and he has this amazing camp in place.
He's amazing.
And we're able to give, scholarships away to people in the community out there, and folks that need it, and companies that have helped us, and support a bunch of different folks, and then give the kids something. It's crazy. It's been a lot of fun. So,
well, Chad, I met you when you first came in, your rookie year.
Yeah.
All the way to that last game, and
you haven't aged. It's amazing. How do you
neither
do that?
of you.
Yeah, right.
Pretty soon your kids
see the
will
gray
be.
hairs. Yeah, it's the girls.
But it's really been a joy for me to know you personally, but to see everything that you and Jenny have built, how you have transformed into retirement, and just everything that you're giving back. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. It's exciting to talk about these things, because these are the things that I do every day, and but don't talk about them. So it's fun to be able to put it out there. So thank you.
Yeah, you're first on the Greenway list. Next is going to be Madness. I'm going to go all the way down the list to have them all on the show. So.
Exactly.
Thank
you.
I really appreciate it.
Yes.